We got Kiwee. Kiwee, who's
There
calling
we
in
go.
from Canada. Kiwee, you're live on Truth
How's
Wanted. What's up?
how's it going, buddy?
Very good. Thank you for the invite, Demonstryde, and thank you for hosting Dan and co-hosting Demonstryde. Guys, thank you. Hi.
Hi. What's up? So I see specifically, you talked to the call screener. You asked, how do you contain a medium with an observable pressure gradient? Is that
Yes,
specifically
sir.
what you want to know from us?
That's my question for you guys.
Okay. Demonstride, you've had this conversation before. So
Yes.
what do you think?
How do you contain the medium with a pressure gradient? Gravity.
How would you
It's
locally demonstrate gravity?
locally demonstrating gravity. I would probably use a what's that column? It's different fluids in a darn it. It's a buoyancy or density column, and when you drop it, all of those different layers immediately become unorganized because they are no longer being pulled to their respective densities by gravity. Now they are in free fall, so they mix together.
Okay, so we can just take like an observation, honey and water as an example, throw in vinegar if we want to be creative and start realizing there's some kind of a buoyancy, observable buoyancy that starts to introduce itself.
Yep.
All right. So the characteristics of each independent, i.e., the honey, the water, the oil, if you will, you take away their observable characteristics, i.e., their weight, and you simply plaster it, label it with the idea of gravity.
Well, we can link back to what Shane said about electrostatics causing things to have a downward vector. If that's what's causing these things to organize in a gradient, why, when you drop it, do they all mix around? They should stay in their specific gradients.
The issue that I'm having with that is that whether you interact, and I love to go to this example, but whether I interact with something that weighs 10 grams, an ounce, all the way up to 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 50 pounds, 200 pounds on a bench press, these things are all functions of what you call gravity, but these independent characteristics of the individual things that are being assessed, their weight is being removed, and you're simply saying that it's gravity. Is that correct?
Well, their weight isn't being removed. Their weight is still there. It's still being pulled downward, except they are now in free fall. And if you imagine the things stacked together, right? At no point, if it's electrostatics, should they mix, because electrostatics is pushing the top layer onto the next layer, onto the next layer, and it keeps going down through the density. It should just drop like a stack of pennies or a stack of quarters, dimes, and nickels, all in their respective sizes.
Gotcha. Now, question being, looking at the idea of kinetic versus potential energy, what are your thoughts on that?
This one always bugged me as a kid because I didn't quite understand how something sitting on a table could be potential energy. But I mean, the fact that it has potential to do energy would explain, why the thing could fall, right? Like it has a potential to do it. I don't know. What's your explanation for it?
Well, and ideally, and I really appreciate the fact that you asked me that, because we take, for instance, a 100-pound weight, a 100-pound rock, whatever. We get into the helicopter, we burn the fuel, we reach altitude, 1,000 feet, we drop that weight. We know potentially, I'm not really in a place where I'm going to work out the mathematics to it, but I'm assuming that probably that item will reach terminal velocity at some point in time. But the main thing that I'm observing in that entire mode is that I'm picking up that rock, I'm getting into the helicopter, I'm observing the fuel gauge drop, I'm observing the blades of the helicopter spin, so I know that the helicopter is doing the work. I know that the pilot is doing the work because he's controlling it, and I know that I'm holding the rock and I'm in there, and I know that the rock has weight because my body is assessing it through vasodilation, supplying the muscles with oxygen and blood, and so on and so forth, yada yada. We reach altitude, we release that potential energy, it becomes kinetic, and then it seeks its rest point on the earth. Now, and then I take that observation within the medium of air, if you will, and then I look at a diver as an example. You were present on my show the other day when I was talking about this on with respects to buoyancy. But we take a diver who dives to a certain depth, right? We know that hydrostatic pressure exists. Hydrostatic pressure is not a function of gravity. Otherwise, the water would push the diver down. However, we know that the diver changes his profile. He can interact with that, again, different medium, but still a medium being water. And then he can come back to his level, or the buoyancy, the water level at any point because he knows where it is. So I'm just trying to figure out how you have two different mediums. You have an observable pressure gradient, 14.7 psi at water level, right? And that diminishes as you go up. And I'm still in the place where I'm like contained, stable, and we're still using gravity to explain this. Like, it perplexes me.
What are you saying is separating the air and the water? Like, what keeps them as a gradient?
Their densities. The heaviest water goes on the bottom.
Right. And why is it have a downity?
A downity?
Yeah.
Instead of an uppity. Because it has the characteristics of a weight. Right? I'm not at a point where I'm ready to go to gravity because I still haven't fully ascertained how we can introduce something, right? Like it's like halfway, right? I'm going to pick up the pen and then drop it and say gravity, but what about picking up the pen? I still got to get credit for that. So what I'm saying is I'm not ready to take on the idea of gravity because it hasn't been fully demonstrated yet. Because the thing is, I know that when I pour a glass of water locally, right, that water, although, and again, I'm closing my eyes respectfully to the idea of gravity, right, and I'm just looking and I'm realizing that as I fill that cup up fuller and fuller, that water has a weight to it, and that weight is growing as I pour more into it. So that's the downity, if you will. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just clearing my throat, but also, okay, so like, gravity doesn't have to be the only force that acts upon an object. I think that maybe is where the confusion is. Like, you can have, I can't remember what they're called, but there are flasks that hold liquids that move
Erlenmeyer
liquids up and go all over the place, right? And that's another kind of pressure that I don't even know if it's pressure, actually, to be honest with you. I'm not the best person to ask about it, but like I do know there's other physical forces at play that can act against gravity. The fact that things act against gravity doesn't mean that gravity isn't a thing, right?
So again, right, coming right back to what I said at the very beginning is, I'll use another example, a weight rack that has weights from 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20, 30, all the way up to 50, right? Each of those things, to me, again, appear to be potential energy. I pick them up, I work with them, kinetic energy, I put them back down, potential energy, right? Again, from a standpoint of, you say there are other forces, okay, I know like apparently there's 4 of them, 4 forces. Gravity apparently is the, quote, weakest, right? But again, my friend Dan, like from a standpoint of, I'm still looking at that individual item, and I'm saying that that is an individual item on its own. It's a red car, as an example, right? It's not to say that all cars are cars, right? If I'm able to describe something simply by stating characteristics to it, I think that I can still stay within that one lane of describing that thing, saying it has a weight of this, and this other thing has a weight of that. And that's it. Introducing gravity into that seems to be a stretch, a reach, if you will.
I would say the objects have an individual mass, right?
Mhm.
And the amount of gravity. So the gravity on Mars, the gravity on the moon is going to be different based on the masses there. So you take that same weight to one of these other planets, and you will notice they don't feel like they weigh what they say they weigh on the metal. So gravity can change the weight of those specific masses.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what? Because again, you introduced
Depending on
Mars and other
where you're located in space.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to go to space to bring home the idea of gravity.
I mean, if you want to test out gravity as a thing, yeah, that's actually a really good way to do it, right? If you show that, hey, things on the moon fall at a different rate than most things on Earth, I'd say that actually perfectly demonstrates gravity.
So I got to go to the moon to test out gravity. Okay, got it.
You don't have
I'm
to.
gonna
I'm just
withdraw
saying
my-
that's one thing. Again, Demonstryde already mentioned at least one other experiment that talks about gravity and its forces. But yeah, like that's definitely not the only thing.
I don't feel, from a standpoint, again, respectfully, of, again, how you can have air and water within an enclosure.
Why?
I believe to be, pardon me?
Why not? Why does that confuse
Because
you?
of gravity. Because we're using gravity to bring home that idea. And I still can't, as I say, locally describe it or even demonstrate it. It's an idea, again, of picking up a pen, right?
Wait, when you put something object on a scale, are you not locally demonstrating that object has a mass?
The object has a weight. I want to check my weight. I get onto the scale. It tells me what I weigh. But then the thing about it is, are you going to build in the idea of gravity into the definition of my weight or of the person standing on the scale?
I mean, inherently, yes, because if you weighed yourself on the moon, you would show a different result.
Mm-hmm. And you could take that same scale to the moon, right? You can't. I mean, you can go to the moon. I mean, you can sign up. They're going to be, working there soon in the next 20, 30 years. I don't know if you'll be around for it, but it's not an impossibility.
Yeah, and also, like, again, the closer we get to the Earth, right? Like, there's more solid things closer to the Earth, and as farther you get out, there's more gases. It's like that with literally every other planet. In fact, gas giants are exactly that. The denser gases are closer to the core of those planets, and same thing even with the sun. Like, that's just how gravity works. The things that have the higher masses are going to be closer together, but the things that don't aren't.
So 14.7 psi observable at water level. How do you theorize that to the decimal point of 0.7 is maintained with no undulation of pressure?
What do you mean? When you go underwater, first of all, I've scuba dived. I know what it's like to see a pressure differential. You do that because you're going lower towards the earth and you're in a body of water. So the pressure is going to be increasing because the matter around you is more dense. Air is not as dense as water.
Well,
right?
it's that there's more mass of the water pressing down on you.
Right. So, I mean, that is perfectly fine under a model that endorses gravity. I don't know why that's an issue.
Okay, again, we're not having, as I explained this earlier, when a diver interacts with water being a medium, he changes his profile, he can dive deeper, right? He wears weights, things like that. He doesn't have water pressing down on him. Hydrostatic pressure is a pressure that is exerted from all sides.
Yes, he has, but if he was horizontal to the water, his backside would be feeling more of that pressure than his stomach. Or no?
Yeah. That's how, I mean, like, that's how water bugs work, I think, right? Isn't it? They deal with the pressure on top of the water anyway. Like, I mean, we're constantly surrounded by pressure in the air. That's how we get that constant, because there is gravity and we exist on one plane of the Earth's planet, and it just, we're consistent in that space. So if you go up a mountain, the air pressure is going to be different, right?
Exactly. It's that the air molecules are going to have the same mass. Yeah, but the mass of the oxygen molecules are going to be the same. It's its downward vector is going to be less.
That's why you have to wear an oxygen mask when you go up Mount Everest. I don't know why you'd have to do that under a flat Earth model.
Because you're increasing altitude, as I mentioned in my question, with an observable
but
pressure gradient.
what is altitude?
Increase your elevation level.
Okay, but why does that matter as to respect to whether or not you can breathe?
Because the pressure gradient changes as you increase your altitude.
No, it's not the pressure. It's literally there's not enough like the air that we breathe. The air is literally different, right? We're used to a certain mixture, and that mixture changes when you get up above a mountain. Like that's the difference.
The pressure gradient changes. The oxygen becomes less present. That's as you go higher up. High altitude training, guys on treadmills wearing oxygen masks to restrict their breathing to help increase their lung capacity. These are things that are done. I understand the premise. I still don't. I'm putting forth the idea that you have I believe it to be a closed system. And with respects to the creation of it, as Shane had mentioned earlier, the idea of the firmament comes into play.
Well, right, but even the globe model is a closed system. The entire universe is enclosed, so all of the processes are there.
Yeah.
Enclosed or closed, Demonstryde?
Yeah, I don't know. I would say though it is. We exist in our local universe that is enclosed in this system. I don't know if you can get out of the universe.
So space still exists?
Yes. Also, what do you think stars and other planetary bodies are?
They're the luminaries that were created on the fourth day and put into the firmament.
Into the firmament? Like, what does that mean?
Well, I believe the firmament to be our enclosure, if you will, and the celestial bodies themselves were put in there. The moon to govern over the night, and the sun to govern over the day.
So, like, are they embedded in a substance?
I don't know. I've theorized that the firmament is comprised of something called tritium, H3, heaviest water. You could have a lake full of it, and it would look like a valley. It's that
okay.
There are evidence, or there is evidence of things that explosive devices being launched into the sky in the 60s, Operation Fishbowl, Operation Dominic. I don't know exactly what they were doing, but yeah.
So they're in water. It's like a water.
Well, the problem with that is,
if you want to go full forth with my idea,
how the hell? Wait, how do meteors work then? Where do they come from?
The thing about that is there have been no impact craters found.
What about micrometeors?
No
you can collect them
meteors or fragments. I think that the things that go across the sky are nothing more than combustible fireworks, sideways fireworks that go across the sky, and we happen to see them. I think that's what
sideways fireworks.
About that.
The problem I have with the firmament
100%.
you just explained is it seems like the firmament would be more dense than the air underneath it.
More dense than the air underneath it, right? But if it was, let's say it was a form of a noble gas, like a hydrogen, a form of hydrogen, right? And it was charged in a certain manner where it could hold a certain form, right? A forgiving hand, if you will. Things hit it, rip across it, create a wake-like pattern, looking like a boat going across the ocean. This is where I'm at, thinking that the original creation was. On day one, there was the original light. Day two, this firmament was created. This air pocket was made. The third day, the lands were brought into that space. And on the fourth day, the luminaries, the celestial bodies, were put into the firmament itself. Day 5 and 6 were things in the water, and then things on the land.
I'd be interested to see your evidence for what you claim the firmament is. Like, how did you get to that information?
Yeah.
my main observation or observable with that is the Falcon 9 rocket launch. I go to that quite often just because of the fact that when the booster portion of the rocket breaks off, there seems to be ripples that are created in the sky. And I mean, again, putting just the idea forward of H3 tritium, the heaviest water, as an idea, right? And then I have this rocket with, again, the boosters create this like ripple in the sky itself. All of a sudden, the idea of the heaviest water starts to come front and center.
Well, I mean, again, I don't know how stars work then if they're like in water. It seems like that doesn't make sense unless
Feels
they're
like they would get
Twinkle,
displaced
twinkle.
every time a meteor came through.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, again, I had to look this up. I did see this the other day. Anne Elizabeth Fowler Hodges, first woman to be hit by a meteorite.
Mm.
So,
Like
and
that.
then
Okay,
according to this
okay.
story, oh, okay, so she's a psyop too. So I'm wondering, when would you ever accept evidence? If I got hit by a meteorite tomorrow, are you just gonna assume point blank that I'm also a psyop, or what would I need to convince you that it actually happened to me?
Not at all. You have to understand that I mean, throughout the show, I heard you talk about belief, right? And
Yes.
please understand that you're speaking to somebody who believes in creation, right? I can go through, I have gone through publicly the 7 days and how they break down what got brought in where. So from a
Yeah.
standpoint of where I am, I'm standing solidly on the foundation of my beliefs as such with observables that I have. So from a standpoint of you bringing forward an idea that somebody got hit by a flying rock, bro, somebody got hit by a flying rock. It happened. I don't know. I just have to figure out how did that rock get the energy to get up into the sky, right? To get the energy to knock that person in the skull, number one. That's the first question I have. Or secondly, is the ceiling falling apart? Is the ceiling creating meteors itself? I don't know, right? But again, from a standpoint of being in an enclosed system protected by water, I don't know how that rock gets the energy to start moving and hitting people in the head.
If you were to find a way to understand how meteors exist, would this shake your belief about the firmament?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Just because, again, Demonstryde, I said earlier that I would have to figure out how that rock got the energy, right, to begin its flight path, right? It's parabola. I can't even say it right, so I won't even say it. But its trajectory, right, through the air and so on. But that is just one piece of the entire thing to be considered of. So I can't see evidence of meteors shaking the foundation that I'm standing upon.
But what if I told you that bodies in space with no other forces acting upon it will continue to move in space, right? Like that seems to be a pretty understood idea in science, right? In space, if you just keep moving, you're going to keep going. Unless another force acts upon you, nothing's going to stop you, right? And like energy can happen. First of all, the only reason why we even have energy on Earth is because of the sun, right? Like, stars have to give us energy to form the matter that we have, but also like everything that we do here. So, the fact that stars even exist and stars can be explained through gravity and other kinds of forces. I don't know. I think that what you're asking is pretty explainable. I mean, have you Googled or have you looked at where meteors come from? What most people say they come from? Do you not find that convincing?
Not at all, because again, impact craters, right? The evidence of rocks creating an impact crater, where's the rock that created that impact crater? And like, again,
Do you believe
that
that
is
those
just one
craters were
piece of it.
created by meteors or asteroids?
Or do you think God created the craters?
The actual impact craters themselves, right? The trails, there's no trails of showing a meteor coming in and the actual impact path it would make into the ground, right? And then the actual meteor itself, evidence of the meteor itself, where is it? And that's the tough part that I'm having from
Well,
the
they've
standpoint
found
of
at the
do
center of
meteors
some of these
exist, number one. Sorry.
at the center of some of these craters, they've actually found what would be the fragments or the the leftover of the asteroid. So I mean, there is evidence for impact craters and material being there sufficient for it, but like the whole rock isn't going to be there. Like there's energy imparted into that crater, and you know.
Yeah. Anyway, look, we're already over time here, Kiwee. We got to end the
Thank you
show
so
because we
much
usually
for
wrap it
the
up at
chat,
8:30.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, man. It's really
Be well.
fun.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you
No
guys.
problem. No problem. Have a good day. So I'm really sorry, Demonstryde, because you wanted to talk to other people, and we ended up making this a flat Earth. That we had like 3 other callers wanted to talk to us, but I couldn't. You have to understand. I couldn't
Oh,
pass
I
up this
understand.
opportunity.
I
You understand? I mean, it's not every day you get to talk to people who believe in flat Earth. I mean, yeah, I've talked to them before, but it's very
I get to talk
infrequent.
to flat earthers every day.
I know this is your thing, but you know what? That's why you're here, so I can talk to them, right? Tell you what, next time, Demonstryde, next time you come on, we won't take any flat Earth calls.
No, we'll
Or
take it. We'll take at least some flat Earth calls.
you want to take? Okay, we can take some flat Earth calls, but this is my promise to you. We'll take more than just flat Earth calls next time you come on, because I'd love to have you on again. I think this was a really good time, and I could tell the disappointment of you wanting to talk to other kinds of beliefs and stuff. But I had to do it. I had to do it.